Hey guys, welcome to my productive cozy writing vlog where normally I'm talking about what I'm writing about and what project I'm working on. Today we're going to talk about what I'm going to read in December. So I have my stack of things that I'm going to be reading this month and I'm really excited about it. I picked some ones that I was been holding on to and I knew I just really wanted to read and I was excited about reading them. But before I get to this stack, I want to briefly talk about one of the books I read last month. Now, if you read last month's companion video about what I was going to read in November, one of the books I was talking about was One for My Enemy by Olive Lee Blake. Now, I took this book with me on vacation last month and I knew I would be stuck in a room, unable to do things, so I did my best to plow through it. And I'm starting to think that Olive Lee Blake and I just have a clash of personality almost. Everyone really seems to enjoy her writing, and I want to enjoy her writing. I love all the concepts. They all sound amazing, and every one I pick up, I'm like, oh, this is the one I'm going to love. But like all of the other books that I've read of hers, this one did the same thing to me. About the middle mark, it fell apart and it lost me as the reader. Now, in case you're unfamiliar, One for My Enemy is a Romeo and Juliet kind of adaptation. Actually, Olive Lee Blake actually goes so far as in the beginning of the acts that she quotes bits of Shakespeare's work. So she's very clearly drawing the line between her work and his and saying these are where these two are connected. It stars two magical witchy families set in a fictitious New York City. And that whole concept just, I don't know, doesn't it sound amazing? Don't you want to read that book? I picked it up and I was like, yes, this sounds awesome. And everything was going great until the kind of the death scene, which in this case was about the middle of the book, where the two lovers are broken apart because one of them is dead. And then after that, it's just, I think the author and I have a really big clash in personalities, possibly. All her books have done this to me, usually at the same point. So she is very clearly thinking this is not a problem, but me as a reader is thinking this is a gigantic problem. The narration just, for me, falls apart. It's like we have this structure in the beginning, right? You're introduced to characters, you're introduced to the plot, everything's going what I would think to be according to plan, and then in the middle, she just starts throwing stuff at you. And there's a lot of random exposition here and there, and part of me wonders, like, this book probably would have been the same had you cut out that exposition. Didn't need this backstory. I mean, yes, it's not a richer, more in-depth story, but it doesn't hurt the plot. And maybe that's where I come in, because I'm very much of the mind that you should not include anything that does not further the plot or enrich the story. And I guess she would argue that it enriches a story, it tells the background so you know where you're coming from and all sides of it. But still, I felt like a lot of that exposition didn't need to be there. And another thing that she's fond of doing that apparently I'm not fond of reading is she tends to jump a lot. And a lot of authors have made do with this, where they have different chapters that have different points of view. But Olive Lee seems to take this to a whole new level. Like, there'll be just a couple paragraphs and then it jumps to a new character, or a page and it jumps to a new character, and I just didn't feel like it was enough. It felt like it was excessive jumping between points of view, and it was hard to get a cohesive look at the whole story. So that's my weird condensed review of the book, I guess. If that sounds like something you're interested, but by all means, read the story. It's One for My Enemy. Look it up. It has an amazing concept. I am 100% behind the concept. It sounds great. I just couldn't get behind it as a reader, trying to navigate my way through the narration that seemed to wander and not really know where it was going. I kind of wonder what she and her editor talk about when they're editing these stories. She must have someone who's in the same mind of her thinking that this is a good thing, which, like I said, maybe it is a good thing. Maybe it's great for you. Maybe you will love this story as much as I wanted to love it. And I really hope someone out there loves it like that. So first up is The Secret History by Donna Tartt. Now, I have read this book before. I've read it more than once. I have never finished it, though. That's something that I have a problem with. I tend to abandon books if they lose me or if it gets too dry. And I don't know why I've decided this December is the one where I'm going to try to get through The Secret History, but I'm going to try again and hopefully finish it this time. I've gotten really close the other times, and I don't remember why I put them down in my past. Just, I don't know, maybe life got in the way. I just really don't remember. So I'm hoping that this time I will be able to go through the bits I've already read more quickly and then get to the end and say, yes, I finally finished it, because, man, everybody loves The Secret History. Personally, I'm not quite sure why they love The Secret History. It doesn't appeal to me as much as it seems to appeal to everybody else, and it's kind of worrisome as a reader, don't you think? That if you don't love a book as much as everybody else loves a book, you start to wonder, what am I seeing that's different? Like, what is my brain processing differently than other people, and why don't I find this as entertaining? I mean, I'm not saying that everybody needs to like everything that everybody else does, but when so many other people love something and then you don't, you start to wonder what's wrong with you. Next up is Cats of Tanglewood Forest by Charles DeLint. Now, I have read this story in different formats. A while back, I was doing a podcast episode with Annie Geaver, and one of her favorite authors is Charles DeLint. So I was reading random stories from him that looked interesting in preparation for our interview. And I found I guess it's like a shorter, maybe kids version of The Cats of Tanglewood Forest. And I thought, oh, my daughter would love that. My daughter is currently obsessed with everything cats. So I got it and I read it to her as bedtime stories over pieces. It was a little bit longer than like a good bedtime story. That's neither here nor there. So I've read these stories in bits and pieces, and then I found this whole novel version of it, which, you know, it's quite a bit larger than a kid's book. I mean, how many pages are in this thing? There are 285 pages in this. So I'm wondering, like, I got really curious about it. What was cut from that version of the story to the kids' version of the story, which has got to be maybe 30 pages at most. So I'm going to start working on Castle Tanglewood Forest and see what they deemed wasn't worthy to go in that smaller version of it, and then how they expanded on those stories, or maybe even added new stories. I mean, it's really exciting to figure out what that decision was to cut and then what to leave in. Now, next on my list that I'm really excited to read, because clearly I'm not excited about any of these books this month, is Mexican Gothic. Now, I am behind the times on reading Mexican Gothic. I haven't read it yet, but if you remember, I think it was back in September, I made a video about the books I was reading that month, and in that stack of books was Certain Dark Things by the same author. And that book changed my life. I mean, it wasn't like soul-searching, changed my outlook on life, but the writing and the story was so effing good. It immediately made its way to like my top 5 books of all time that I'd ever read. I loved that book. It was so good. It was so perfect. The plot was so spot on, and everything did exactly what it was supposed to do, and it was an engaging story, and it was a wonderful story, and it was intriguing, and there was so much backstory that they didn't delve into that you wanted to know more about. Certain Dark Things, I love it. It's definitely top 5 of my top books I have ever read. So when I heard that she was also the author of Mexican Gothic, which I had always heard good things about, but just never picked up for, I don't know, whatever reason in my life that I randomly pick books, I picked it up and put it on my shelf, and it just waited for a time when I thought I would read it. So Definitely reading Mexican Gothic this month. And if you haven't noticed, I'm picking books that I'm really excited to read because December is going to be so busy. I mean, I've got 2 kids, so not only is there Christmas involved there, both my kids were born in December. So I also have 2 birthday parties, and their best friends were also born in December. So you get the picture. I'm not going to have a lot of time to myself, so I needed books that I was just really rip-roaring excited to read. So last but not least on my list is Gear Breakers. Gear Breakers is one of those special books that I bought completely on a whim. I did not go searching for it. I was actually looking for something else, and then I think it was on Amazon, and the Amazon algorithm recommended another book. And that book sounded interesting, and then the algorithm recommended another book, and I just kind of went down this rabbit hole until I landed on Gear Breakers. And it just sounds awesome. It sounds so amazing that I cannot wait to dive into it. I'm trying really hard to make this book my last book of the month because I don't know, it feels special, and I want to wait and just read it when everybody's on vacation and the kids are home and I'm kind of, reading and sort of watching them, mostly reading. And I'm trying really hard to save it because it sounds just amazing. So that's the pile I'm going to try to get through this month. If you have read any of these or if you have read anything similar to them and you want to recommend me a book, I would absolutely love that. I'm always open for book recommendations. I have so many books that I have read. I have to start rereading some of them because I don't know what else to buy next. So please tell me, do you have something good that sounds something up my alley? Like, is it witchy? Is it sci-fi? Is it just really interesting? You think I'd like it? Then hit me up and let me know. Otherwise, at the end of the month, I will try to review one of these, and my reviews, well, clearly you have gotten this far in the video, you know my reviews aren't true reviews. They're just how I felt about a book, or how I couldn't finish a book, or what I loved about a book. But at the end of the month, I will try to talk about one of these books in that way and let you know how the whole process went. Thanks for watching, folks. I really appreciate that you've gotten this far, and I'll see you next week.